Hello, my name is Andrew Geary, and welcome to Seismic Soundoff, in-depth conversations in applied geophysics. In this episode, I speak with Mohamed Ahmed on geophysical test sites. In this conversation, Mohamed highlights the importance of field exercises, why geophysical test sites can act as a competitive advantage, and the many ways test sites can be used by students and companies for free. This conversation showcases the importance of experiential learning in novel ways. This episode is sponsored by TGS. TGS offers a wide range of energy data and insights to meet the industry where it's at and where it's headed. TGS provides scientific data and intelligence to companies active in the energy sector. In addition to a global, extensive, and diverse energy data library, TGS offers specialized services such as advanced processing and analytics alongside cloud-based data applications and solutions. Visit tgs.com to learn more. For Mohamed's biography and contact information, as well as links to the article and March's special section, visit seg.org/podcast. Now, for our conversation. So Mohamed, thanks for joining me. Your article in March is the Leading Edge is why we're speaking with you. And what it does is explore something called geophysical test sites. And to kind of help me understand, what is a geophysical test site?
Thank you, Andrew, for having me. A geophysical test site is a site that contains subsurface targets of known physical properties, orientation, and depth. Those sites usually provide ideal platform to investigate penetration and resolution of different geophysical techniques. Those are used for characterizing shallow subsurface. We use them to record typical and standard responses of each technique over each of the subsurface target. Those responses could be then used to identify subsurface targets in areas where there is little or no information about the subsurface. Those sites are an optimal solution to minimize the non-uniqueness or ambiguity in geophysical data interpretation. As you know, non-uniqueness is a term that refers to the fact that those measured physical effects cannot always be interpreted in terms of unique source occurring at particular depth, because a variety of sources with various parameters and different depths can theoretically produce the same geophysical response. Geophysical test sites help us to minimize those types of ambiguity and non-uniqueness. And finally, geophysics test sites provide ideal facility for teaching, training, demonstration, and research for geophysical surveys.
Yeah, so we're talking real world exercises here. Could you help me get a sense of the scale of what we're talking about with one of these geophysical test sites?
Yes, definitely. Geophysical test sites usually contains those types of subsurface objects of known parameter and depths. They could vary in scale. Their scale could be different. When I was in Michigan, we had a site that is, if I remember correctly, 200 meter by 50 meter area. In our case, at Texas A&M University-Corpus Christi here, our site is 50 meter by 50 meter. We have targets, subsurface targets, distributed along 7 lines. Those lines are grouped by material types. Our targets were selected to have very specific magnetic, electric, and electromagnetic responses. We specifically installed steel drums, plastic buckets, steel pipes, and wool covers. And those targets were buried at depths ranging between 0.5 to 3 meters in some cases. And those targets were chosen to simulate real-life situations. For example, plastic drums are selected to represent chemical waste contamination. Steel pipes are representing part of utility networks such as water or gas or electricity or telephone, and wool covers representing regular or abandoned well cover for any groundwater or oil and gas well.
That's pretty smart there. You know, why for geophysics in particular is these kind of real world field exercises important?
That's a very good question. GTS provide an ideal platform for enhancing teaching and research activities. Usually, field-based exercises enhance students' engagement and performance. We've tried this, we've experienced this ourselves. Those types of exercises allow students to learn through active exploration and interaction instead of just sitting in an instructor-centered environment. Students are often more responsive to concepts when they are presented in settings away from regular classrooms or assigned readings materials. We found field exercises as interesting, motivating, rewarding, and enjoyable, not only by students, it also enjoyable by us as faculty members. Our students love to go outside and collect field data. They regularly talk about their experiences doing this with other peers and colleagues. Our test sites are used to increase the students' knowledge about modern environmental engineering problems that could be solved using our geophysical techniques. Those sites are also facilitating interpretation of different geophysical data. This by itself increases the students' confidence in themselves and their ability to analyze and interpret geophysical dataset. All students with different background. Right now, we have students from environmental science program, geology program, geophysics program, and a physics program attending the same class. This environment will foster interaction between future scientists and technicians who ended up working together and investigating environmental, geotechnical, and engineering issues. And these sites, we also believe that enhance as employment prospect for our students because they're providing practical experience related to their future professional development.
Yeah, I'm sure with multidisciplinary work being more of the norm within the industry, that kind of coming up against other people in different parts of the science is also really helpful to start kind of those conversations early. And I kind of wanted to look at a few things that these geophysical test sites specifically do that caught my attention in the article. So how will this test site help students recognize what geophysical methods might be appropriate to use to address a specific environmental or engineering situation or application?
That's a very good question. Our site provide opportunity to for students to practically learn principle behind each geophysical technique, geophysical response over known targets, and how geophysical techniques are integrated and used for different environment and geotechnical applications. If students know or expect the geophysical response of any geophysical techniques, he will be able to pick specific techniques to solve a specific problem. For example, if he already knows that his situation, like he's trying to locate probably steel drums or steel pipes, so this problem or situation producing electromagnetic anomalies or magnetic anomalies. So by knowing this, he could go and pick the perfect techniques to solve this problem, and so on and so forth. So if his situation is expected to generate specific anomalies when it comes to ground penetrating radar or electric resistivity or gravity techniques, he would go and pick those types of techniques to solve this specific problem based on his knowledge acquired from geophysical test site.
You know, another item here that caught my attention is how these sites can teach students how to define kind of typical pitfalls in the acquisition and processing and interpretation of data. So how does this work? How does this help teach them these pitfalls?
Yes, pitfalls are there in acquisition and processing and interpreting geophysical dataset like any other branch and field. If you know the geophysical response over your targets, you should be able to detect and avoid them. I'm giving you an example here. If the students were to locate steel pipes using, for example, EM31 electromagnetic technique, he need to make sure that if they're using station, not a continuous equipment, if he's measuring the response over a station pattern, he needs to make sure that his station interval is probably 1 meter or less. Otherwise, if he decided to go with larger station interval, probably 10 meters or even like 20 or more, he could miss his target. Those types of information, he learns them live in geophysical test sites. We learn him how to detect, how to avoid those types of pitfalls when it comes to acquisition. Definitely, similarly, when it comes to pitfalls in processing and interpretation, we also show him live how the response for each subsurface target look like from each different techniques, so he can avoid and detect those types of pitfalls when it comes to processing and interpreting his geophysical data set.
Can these test sites be used as well to improve geophysical software in the field?
Yes, that's one additional target for our test site. Given the fact that you will be able to know the physical properties, geometry, and depth of your subsurface, you could adjust your inversion results of any software to detect the exact number because you already know your physical properties and depths and things like that. So definitely you could use them to calibrate your or validate your either equipment or software. And we're using this opportunity right now to invite our industry representative to use our geophysical test site here at Texas A&M University-Corpus Christi for calibrating for their geophysical equipment, as well as for also validating and calibrating of their inversion software.
Yeah, and kind of speaking of using this geophysical test site, one of the reasons you wrote this paper is to encourage the development of additional geophysical test sites. So what advice might you offer a group looking to create their own site?
My advice, if you have a resource, go ahead and construct one. Definitely you will feel a difference when it comes to students' outcomes and students' experience with geophysical data set. My advice to you to try to select targets that simulate real-life environments in engineering, geotechnical, environmental, and archaeological applications. And again, our article right now that's published by The Leading Edge could be used as a reference for anybody who is interested in doing this.
Yeah, they're called geophysical test sites, but as you're speaking here, they're clearly encompassing a far greater range than just geophysics. And the test site that we're talking about and that the article is about is at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Now that is completed, what are you most excited about exploring over the next year?
I'm very excited to collecting geophysical data set from my test site. We've already started to do this, to be honest. In my geophysics class and field geology classes, we've already taken my students outside. I'm collecting some data set from the test site. Very, very interested in collecting research data set. Right now, I'm kind of advertising for this. I'm looking for students, graduate students who is interested in doing those type of research. If anybody who is listening to this is interested in doing graduate studies using geophysical test site, he's more than welcome to contact me. I would also like to use this opportunity to advertise our geophysical test site at Texas A&M University-Corpus Christi for local and regional institutions. Anybody who is interested to use a site for any research or educational purposes, he's more than welcome to come and contact us here at Texas A&M University-Corpus Christi. Again, for our industry representative, if they would like to use it to validate and calibrate their equipment and software packages, they are more than welcome to come and use it. Specifically, when it comes to research, I'm thinking of using the site. I'm very interested in this, actually, using the site to check the penetration and resolution of different geophysical techniques for detection and characterization of the shallow subsurface in very clay-rich environment. This environment is very, very challenging and provide a lot of challenges and limitations to several geophysical techniques. I would like to compare and investigate differences between modeled and measured response of geophysical techniques over known objects. And also, I would be interested in investigating seasonal changes in geophysical signature over known targets and compare the response of different geophysical equipment measuring the same parameters over subsurface targets.
Well, that's a pretty generous offering you are providing there for that community in that region. And, kind of lastly here, you're providing and speaking about some very valuable real world support and exercises for future geophysicists and scientists. Maybe outside of kind of the hard science, what one piece of advice would you offer someone that would like to succeed in this field?
That's a very good point. My advice to anybody who is using geophysics or who's planning to do a career in geophysics is to get benefit from whatever source you have. So geophysical test site, in our case, provide a very, very excellent source of information on how the geophysical data would look like, how to do field geophysics. People usually, when they don't have sites, they usually sit in the classroom and learn about how to do profile and maps, how to collect Graphian, magnetic, electromagnetic, and ground penetrating radar dataset, but they haven't actually have the opportunity to see and do this themselves live in a field. Our test sites provide this opportunity for everybody. So if you're having this chance, don't mess it up. Just use it to equip yourself with necessary knowledge and skill to exceed in the geophysics in general and the field of environmental geophysics in particular.
Thanks for putting all your hard work into a understandable and readable paper. It's in March's 2021, The Leading Edge, and we'll link to it in the episode, and you all can read it. Thanks again, Mohamed, for speaking with us about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to SEG's flagship podcast, Seismic Sound Off. SEG produces these episodes to benefit its members, the geophysics community, and inform the public on the value of the science. To show your support for the show, please share this episode with a friend, colleague, or manager that would enjoy hearing this show. Your recommendation is the single best action you can take on behalf of SEG's podcast. Go to the website at seg.org/podcast to find all the episodes and learn how you can subscribe for free directly on your phone. Original music by Zach Bridges. This episode was hosted, edited, and produced by Andrew Geary at 51 Features. The SEG podcast team is Ted Bakamjian, Jennifer Crockett, Allie McGinnis, and Mick Sweeney. Thank you for listening. This is Seismic Sound Off, signaling off.